Have you ever wondered what your favorite NFL players are like as UFC fighters? Yeah, I know, probably not, but I have. And being a big fan of both sports, I think I've drawn some pretty cool comparisons and parallels between certain NFL athletes and certain UFC fighters. In this video, I'm going to take 10 NFL players, match them up with their 10 UFC counterparts. How I'm going to be judging this, the criteria is basically going to be personality, see if that matches the style and aesthetic of the player, as well as their career path and projection. So, like if they're young, if they've won, if they've lost, things like that. But starting it off with Patrick Mahomes, arguably the face of the NFL, I think his UFC comparison is Ilya Taporia. Now, this is kind of a questionable one. This was made before Ilya just got his face beaten by Justin Gaethje. However, I think both of them are the top of the top. You can argue that there's better fighters in the UFC than Ilya Taporia. You can argue that there's better football players in the NFL than Patrick Mahomes, but regardless, they're going to wind up somewhere within the top five. They're also in such a competitive position and division that I think the parallel between the lightweight division in the UFC and the quarterback position in the NFL is very similar. They're both also just doing things that we've not seen before. They're kind of representing this like new generation of players or athletes inside their respected sport. Patrick Mahomes, we see him do things all the times like the no look passes, the sidearms. He's kind of just brought a new element of game to football. Whereas Ilya Taporia, we've seen with the knockouts, the ground game, he's bringing kind of this new element to UFC, to MMA. And that's kind of where I see both of these guys really paralleling with each other. Yes, there are obvious differences, but I think this one kind of makes sense. Next up, I've got Justin Jefferson. I think his UFC comparison is Max Holloway. This is kind of a tricky one, but if you really think about it, they're both fan favorites. There's not really a ton of Justin Jefferson haters, in the same way that there's not a bunch of Max Holloway haters. They're both entertainers, which is why they're fan favorites. Max Holloway has that super interesting and fun to watch striking style. He's one of the best boxers in the entire UFC. Justin Jefferson's a receiver. He has flash to his game. He'll have big games, highlight moments. And performance wise, they're not always the absolute best, but they're always one of the best. There are seasons where Justin Jefferson is outperformed, like the or like JSN, or like Jamar Chase, or when Cooper Cup won the Triple Crown. Like Justin Jefferson is not always going to be the best receiver in the NFL, but he's always going to be in the top 4 and 5. And I feel like that the same sentiment kind of goes for Max Holloway. He's not always going to be the champion of a division. He's not going to always be the BMF champion, featherweight champion, lightweight champion. But in those respected divisions, he's always within the top 4 or 5. And so I feel like that comparison really kind of tied it together for me. But just kind of style wise, personality maybe wise, I like both of these. I like this comparison. Next up, we got Christian McCaffrey. This one's a little bit weird. You might have to bear with me. I think Christian McCaffrey is Tom Aspinall. And I know it's weird because Christian McCaffrey's undersized guy. Tom Aspinall's a heavyweight and he's huge, but they've both have super injury riddled careers. They both have struggled with injuries. I think they've both torn their ACL. Tom Aspinall is obviously dealing with his eye injury right now. Injuries were a huge question mark with Christian McCaffrey throughout the entirety of his career. But regardless of those injuries, they're both so skilled. In fact, I think they're both the most skilled athletes in their respected position or weight class. I don't think there's a single fighter in the UFC heavyweight division that's more skilled than Tom Aspinall anywhere the fight goes. And I think the same is said for Christian McCaffrey. I don't think there's a more skilled running back in the NFL. He's so dynamic as a pass catcher out of the backfield. I think he could truly be a slot receiver if he wanted to be. He's such an excellent runner of the football with the vision and burst and things like that. They're both just so talented. And yes, you can argue that there's like maybe better, like you can argue that John Jones is better. You can argue that Saquon Barkley is better. But regardless, I think the skill in their respected weight class and position is undeniable. And that's what kind of drew me the comparison with them. My next NFL player, I've got Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen is Charles Oliveira. And I think this because they're both so likable. They both have such positive media connotation, and they're always getting such good publicity. Josh Allen's obviously married to Haley Seinfeld. Charles Oliveira is just this warm, lovable guy, a super big fan favorite. Josh Allen, I think, is the same way, or at least he's perceived that way. However, the skill set, they're so diverse. Josh Allen, think about his rocket arm and how far he can throw the football and the arm talent that he has. But then also, you can mirror that with how dynamic he is as a ball carrier and what he does outside of the pocket and with the football in his hands. I think the same can be said for Charles. He's so dynamic on the ground. He's the best BJJ practitioner in the entire history of the UFC. However, he also has the stand-up ability and the power that makes him so exciting to watch. However, both of them have their clear flaws. And just to be honest, I think both of them are reckless. Josh Allen can be he's turnover prone. He throws too many interceptions. Charles Oliveira can get reckless on the feet. He can get hit, and that's kind of both of their downfalls. Is they're super entertaining, they're super likable, but they're both reckless and have their flaws, which is why I think this kind of comparison really makes a lot of sense. My next NFL player is Myles Garrett. This one's kind of more straightforward. I think Myles Garrett is Islam Makhachev. Now, they're both completely unstoppable. I think, obviously, Islam Makhachev is ranked the pound for pound number one fighter in the entire UFC. And I think if the NFL at a position for position, NFL top 100, I guess, if you will, Myles Garrett is at the top of that list. I don't think position for position anybody is better at football than Myles Garrett. They're both just unstoppable. They are arguably the best in their respected sport. And then I guess this is kind of a reach, but they have like the team and gym perception. This was obviously made when Myles was still in the Browns, but like unless you're a Browns fan, you don't really care about the Browns. Unless you're a Khabib or Islam fan, you don't really care about the success of that gym and at Team Khabib. So they both kind of have like that negative connotation team wise, but I would say definitely just the fact that they are the most unstoppable and regarded as the best in their respected sport that draws this super strong parallel for me. Next up, I've got TJ Watt, another defensive player. I think TJ Watt is Khamzat Chimaev, and this is also made before Khamzat lost to Sean Strickland, but I still think the sentiment kind of rings true. TJ Watt, he's not viewed as the best, but he arguably should be. Whereas Khamzat Chimaev, I know I just got done saying that Myles Garrett is the best. However, TJ Watt is right there. In the same way you can say that with Islam Makhachev, as he's the best, Khamzat Chimaev is kind of right there. Yes, he just took that loss to Sean Strickland. I think he'll be back and probably be better. They're just such high-level athletes that it's hard to deny them. They also require so much prep. Think about the offensive game plan that goes into TJ Watt week in and week out. You need to have constant chips. You can't run play action when he's on the field. The quarterback's timing is always, the mental clock is always just a little bit faster the week you prepare for TJ Watt. I think the same is kind of true for Khamzat Chimaev. When you're going in to fight him, the entire training camp, you're focusing on the anti-grappling. You have to work your takedown defense because it's so relentless and he's so just gifted and has that level of grappling that nobody else really has. I think TJ Watt is a true pass rusher, has that kind of level that not a lot of people have. So I think this kind of makes sense. I could see, maybe some other things working out, but this to me also just kind of made sense for me. Next up, I got Dexter Lawrence. Now I think Dexter Lawrence, this is another weird one because Dexter Lawrence is a bigger dude and this guy kind of isn't, but I think Dexter Lawrence is Merab Dvalishvili. And this is kind of unique because they're both not the most entertaining to watch. However, they are relentless winners. And I mean that in the way that nobody is throwing on highlights or getting super excited to watch a zero nose tackle, two gap, stuff a run, you know, eat up an A gap while the linebacker makes tackle. Nobody's getting super fired up about a run stuffing D tackle. Nobody's really throwing on those highlights. And I feel like that's the same way with Merab Dvalishvili. Nobody's, at least pre-Piotr Jan, is super excited to go watch a Merab fight. Nobody's excited to see him put on this wrestling clinic. But they both do what they do very well. That's why they're regarded at the top. Obviously Merab isn't the champ right now, but he used to be. Dexter Lawrence might not be the best nose tackle in football, but he was a couple seasons ago. And, you know, Another parallel that I kind of draw is Marab has the chance to regain his title. I think Dexter Lawrence has a chance to assert himself as the number one nose tackle in the NFL this season. So the play style is really what brought these two together for me. But then also, I think they both kind of have these goofy personalities. Obviously, there's a sexy Dexy dance. He's kind of got that goofiness to him. Marab, if you really pay attention, you listen to him, and you hear some of the interviews that he's done. He's also kind of a goofy guy. So I think personality-wise, it also makes sense. So that's my comparison for Dexter Lawrence and Marab Dvalishvili. Next, Pat Surtain. This one's kind of tough unless you know who both of them are because it's tough to articulate, but I think Pat Surtain is Piotr Jan. Now, the main reason why is that they're both so calculated and technical. Think of the footwork and the hip movement and the discipline of Pat Surtain and put that into an embodiment of what a UFC fighter is. To me, that is Piotr Jan. Piotr Jan is so technical, so calculated. Everything he does has purpose. Everything he does has meaning. His footwork, everything. They're just the same, and they're also regarded at the top of their class and position right now. Right now, Piotr Jan's the champ. Right now, I don't think many people are disagreeing with you if you say that PS2 is the best cornerback in the league. So both of these guys have the prestige in their position and weight class, but also have that similar approach to the game that they bring. And so that's why I think Patrick Surtain and Piotr Jan kind of makes sense. It's tough to articulate. Hopefully I did a good job. But if you know both of them, I think it makes sense. My next NFL player is Jackson Dart. Now, I think I cooked with this one. I really do think I completely cooked with this one. I think Jackson Dart is Quillen Salkeld. Now, why is that? They're both young and super promising. Jackson Dart just came off of his rookie season where he performed very well. Quillen Salkeld only has, I think, 4 or 5 fights in the entire UFC, but he's already a ranked contender within the lightweight division, which I think once again resonates with the quarterback position as well. They've also just got this moxie and confidence and just swagger to them that they bring onto the football field and into the octagon. You can see it. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to get Quillen Salkeld's perspective on American politics, but I think both of these guys make perfect sense. They're super entertaining the same way that Quillen Salkeld is landing these flashy head kick KOs and knocking out Beneil Dariush. Jackson Dart isn't afraid to lower his shoulder and get extra yards as a quarterback, which is really unheard of. He'll rip the ball and push it downfield. They're just so entertaining, young, and they have that moxie that just, to me, this makes too much sense. So if you don't know who Quillen Salkeld is, just think of the embodiment of Jackson Dart, maybe minus the MAGA, and then put it into an Aussie inside the octagon. I think that's who Quillen Salkeld is. Next up, Jahmyr Gibbs. I think this is our last player. To me, Jahmyr Gibbs is Mauricio Rufy. And I kind of had a trouble. I kind of was between a few players here or UFC fighters here for Jahmyr Gibbs. But when we break it down, they're both so electrifying. They're young. They're not necessarily the top, but they're regarded as some of the best. Like they fit within each other, I think. However, the biggest word I can use to describe Jahmyr Gibbs, and I think a lot of people would use to describe him, is flash. He's not a lot of brute. He's not going to be a short yardage guy. He's not a power back to say. He's elusive. The burst, the agility, the speed of Jahmyr Gibbs, that's kind of what Mauricio Rufy brings to the octagon. He's not a grappler. He's not going to control you. He literally looks like he is floating off of the canvas in the octagon, and he has such a flash to his striking style. The spinning wheel kicks and the way Jahmyr Gibbs is a home run hitter from the running back position. Mauricio Rufy has that one-shot KO power. And so both of these guys kind of make sense. It's just the flash of both of them that really checks out for me with both. It makes sense to me. That is actually all I've got. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys had fun with this video. I had fun with it. It was cool to just kind of draw the parallel. Let me know, like it if you liked it. I actually have 10 more, so I will hopefully drop a part 2. Let me know if you think I was wrong about a bunch of stuff. Let me know if you think I was cooking. If you guys think I'm wrong, let me know who you think should have been it, or if you guys have some that weren't on here, uh, drop them down. Let me see. But thank you guys so much for watching. I told you I'm going to try and get more videos out. This is our first non-breakdown uh, breakdown recap video, so I'm going to try and get more out, kind of like this commentary style. Let me know if you guys like it. I'm having fun, but they could suck, so I don't know. I don't know when I'll see you next. I think I'm going to do like a state of the division kind of series. But if you guys have video ideas, let me know. I'll make them, whether they're UFC and football, just the NFL, just MMA. Let me know. And I will see you when I see you. See ya.